So what is the conditional and when do we actually use it? Its first use is to refer to hypothetical events that depend on a certain condition. The best way to explain that is to show you an example. If I had money is the beginning of a sentence and it's also the condition for the rest of the sentence. I would travel. So if I had money is the condition and I would travel is what would happen if the condition was met. And this is when we use the conditional. In English, quite often it's translated with would, should, could, etc. There is another use of the conditional and it's the polite form. If I say in English, I want coffee, it's of course less polite than I would like a coffee. We use the conditional in English to soften the request almost. Well, in French, we actually do the same. Another use is to formulate a wish or express a wish. For example, I would like to learn French. It's something I would like to do, therefore we use the conditional. You also use the conditional to give advice. For example, you should do more exercise. You can also use the conditional to express the future in the past. What it means is that in the past something was mentioned that would arrive later. So in this example, he told us in the past that he would in the future arrive on Monday. This is where we use the conditional. Before we have a look at the formation of the conditional, it's essential that you are familiar with these two tenses, the simple future and the imperfect. If you're not 100% sure, I have videos on these two tenses, so feel free to watch them. But if you are more or less familiar with these two tenses and you need a little reminder, this is what I'm going to do now anyway. So, the first thing, as ever, when conjugating verbs or using verbs, we need to find the stem. For the simple future, we take the infinitive verb, except for RE verbs, because we need to get rid of the E as well. And we need to remember irregular stems of the future tense. For the imperfect, it's the new form of the present tense. Get rid of the sign of nous, the ONS, and there's only one exception, is the verb être. The second thing we need to do, once we have the stem, is to add the endings. And for the simple future, we've got these endings that look almost like the verb avoir. So, je danserai, tu finiras, nous vendrons. For the imperfect, we add these endings, they're almost similar, and we end up with je dansais, tu finissais, nous vendions. To form the conditional, you need to merge these two tenses together. That's why it's important to be familiar with them in the first place. So, forming the conditional means using the stem of the simple future and adding the endings of the imperfect tense. In the future, I say je danserai, I will dance. My stem is danser, the infinitive, to which I add an ending. And in imperfect, I have je dansais, I used to dance, or I was dancing, and the ending is AIS. To form the conditional, I put the two together, therefore I end up with je danserai, I would dance. So, to summarize, to form the conditional tense, you need the stem of the simple future, which is normally the infinitive, except for vendre, where we get rid of the E for IRE verbs. We must remember irregular stems. Once we have the stem of the simple future, we add the endings of the imperfect. Let's have a look at our previous example. If I had money, I would travel. We have I would travel is what would happen if the condition was met, and we know this is the conditional. Je voyagerai. Now, what do we need to use for the condition? In which tense do we need to express that condition? Not in the conditional. The conditional is for the events that would happen depending on the condition. The condition itself will be expressed in French in the imperfect. Therefore, we're going to have si j'avais de l'argent. So the whole sentence together, si j'avais de l'argent, imperfect, je voyagerais, conditional. Let's explore these two tenses together. We have a sentence broken down into two clauses. A clause is a short sentence, usually a phrase with a verb in it. So that's what we call a clause. So we've got A and B. Let's have a look at A. We have a big clue, which is the little word if. In French is the word si. And it tells us that it is the clause that contains the condition. So if it contains the condition, it's going to be in the imperfect. Now, clause B is what would happen if the condition was met, and therefore is the conditional. Another example, this time with the word if absent. So let's have a look at the sentence. I would stay at home should it rain. The condition for me to stay at home is that it should rain. So A is going to be the conditional, depending on the condition, and the condition is going to be B, therefore the imperfect. Only one sentence here. They should do more exercise. Is going to be the conditional because we're giving an advice. It's not something that has happened, will happen, or is happening. It's possible that it may happen. Therefore, there are plenty of conditions around it. We use the conditional. Let's practice. In part 1 of this task, I want you to have a look at these English sentences, and for each sentence, I want you to decide which part is the actual condition and which part you would put in the conditional tense. Let's have a look at the first one. With more time, we would finish the work. Now, the condition for us finishing the work is having more time, so that's the condition. And depending on the condition, we would finish the work is the conditional tense. Could I have the salt? This is the polite form, therefore conditional tense. If I were less tired, I would do the housework. The condition for the housework to be completed is me being less tired, that's the condition. I would do the housework is the conditional tense. My sister would be happier if she had money. The condition is my sister having money. The rest will be the conditional tense. They would like to go to Paris. We've got this structure in English, would like. We know straight away that it is the conditional tense. And the final one, if you could come, is the condition. The rest is the conditional. In part 2 of this exercise, you have the sentences in English and the translation in French. You have on the left a blue box with everything that you need to form verbs in the conditional, and your task is of course to fill in the gaps with the correct French verb in the conditional. You can pause the video if you want to write the answers, or you can do the activity with me as I go along. C'est parti. Numéro 1. The verb that we're looking for is the verb finish. Would finish. This is what we have to translate. The verb finish is finir. The ending for nous is ions. Therefore, nous finirions le travail. I could have the salt. We're looking for the verb be able to, can. This verb is pouvoir. The stem is pour. And we need the ending for the first person. Je pourrais avoir le sel, s'il vous plaît? Numéro 3. Si j'étais moins fatigué, je, and of course we're looking for the verb to do, faire. Its stem is faire, and we've got the first person again. Si j'étais moins fatigué, je ferais le ménage. We have in the English version for number 4 would be, so we need the verb to be, être. Ma sœur is the third person singular, she, elle. So we're going to take the stem, sœur, and then take the ending, ait. Ma sœur serait plus heureuse. Numéro 5. They would like to go to Paris. We have the verb like, to like. It's aimer. I don't know if you remember that. Aimer is to like. The subject is they. Therefore, we're going to have ils aimeraient aller à Paris. To translate would like, you can also use the verb vouloir, and you could have used voudrait instead. Number 6, it would be. Again, we've got the verb to be, and ce is an impersonal subject that is close to il, is the third person. So it would be super becomes, or it would be great becomes ce serait super. To finish, a little tip for you regarding pronunciation. Try to remember that when you're using the future tense or the conditional tense, you should hear the sound r, the R sound. For example, je mangerai, tu auras, il fera in the future, and in the conditional you'll have je chanterai, tu aurais, il ferait. This R sound is always present in those two tenses. Félicitations, you've completed lesson 7. I'll leave a little task for you to do, and in the meantime, all I have to say is au revoir et à bientôt for lesson number 8.